Eric, I'm on. Oh, sorry. And you wanted me to make those two intros, right, bud?
I already did. I
Oh, you
appreciate it.
already
I
you already
already
got
got
it?
it.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
thank you.
All right. Awesome.
All right. We're trickling up to almost halfway full.
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, it's great to see everybody and happy Thursday. It's hard to believe we are in May. Let's see everyone in Discord. There's everyone. It was that AI, David. Is that the reference there? I'm not sure. I'm not. But okay, Ben knows. So Chip, really interesting. Wow, has it been an interesting week? Aside from probably the folks out at Kaseya and what's going on there, what I found interesting, and I'll bring up in the slide deck, was certainly, and I put a LinkedIn post out there, certainly what United Healthcare Group's CEO came out and said. So that's one thing I want to talk to everybody about, which is I prepared something on attack surface management. So that was one thing. The next thing is I don't know if anybody saw, but Dropbox had a pretty big breach announced in the last call it 15, 18 hours. I don't know if you saw that, Ben, but it looks like their database was also compromised, tokens, whole 9 yards. So if you have Dropbox, I would highly encourage you guys to change passwords, credentials, and things of that nature. I'll show you some stuff out there. And then the last thing is
Can
hard
you
to believe.
link to that?
What's that, bud?
You should have linked to that Dropbox announcement.
Happy to. Right here, my friend.
Thank you.
You got it. You got some clients there, Eric, and stuff that might have that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're trying to get them all off the Dropbox, but there's some hanger-oners.
I guess we'll be running a software list and see who's still running Dropbox, even though they're not supposed to be.
What's that, Gary?
I said we'll run a software list and see who's running it, even though they're not supposed to be.
Yeah. Oh God, how no one would do any type of shadow IT there, Gar, and
Never.
have that running in the background, right?
Did you drop that in the chat?
Right in chat, Gar. Right in chat for everybody.
How about if you hit send?
So let me try that again. It went to, there was some reason it was a default to
Oh, there it goes.
read.ai meeting notes. Oh, sorry. So my thing was defaulted there. So that's it.
That's okay.
All
Andrew,
right.
we won't hold it against you. If that's all you do today, that'll be fine.
Oh, I'm like George Costanza. I can leave, Gar. Okay, let me share out my screen, which, as you guys know, is always dangerous when I do that, but I'm going to do it anyway. We'll share out everything. So this is the thing with the Dropbox chip. I'm not sure if you saw this yet.
I didn't see it. I'm glad you're bringing it up because obviously,
but it's right up your alley. OAuth, so and again, this is probably going to be one of these. Now I'm guessing I don't follow Dropbox, but I'm guessing, are they public, guys? Do you know that, guys and gals? Because it had a filing with SEC.
yeah, I believe they are.
Okay.
This is interesting. So it's their document signing product that they bought.
Well, and again, this is where, right, Dropbox Sign.
But is it Dropbox Sign or is it the core file sharing app?
Well, it says sorry, I should have been more clear. It says Dropbox Signs, but this is where if I were even a Dropbox user, Gary.
Yeah, that's fine.
You know,
yeah, I don't know anybody's using the Sign program, but
well, all I'm saying
still
is
bad.
All users of Dropbox Sign, which is still going to be perhaps millions, at least hundreds of thousands.
And what, because they start to talk about API. If anybody was using Dropbox period, a Dropbox product, because again, as we know, these stories go from, let's present a little data to a little more data. information, if I was a Dropbox user, period, I would be changing my credentials. Because look at this. Only 130 code repositories. So it's hard, you know what I mean? I just wouldn't be, I would just say if you use Dropbox, period, change your creds.
Yeah, ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure here.
Yeah, I would not be, because again, with the, like I said, I know I'm going to beat this record one last time. If we look at almost every single public disclosure so far in the last year, they have gone from, you know, trickles of information to more information to more information. That's because again, it's notification to the SEC. They've done their initial job notifying the SEC. So I'll stop there. And Chip, this, you know, again, just last thing I'll ask you, knowing that, let's just say you were using both, is it possible that they could use OAuth to go from one to the other?
It's possible, but it depends on their architecture. And Dropbox Sign is something that I've never used. It is a separate product add-in. We obviously monitor Dropbox for folks. We don't use it as a product ourselves in SaaS alerts. But we do have, I don't even know the number, a few hundred customer accounts that are being monitored. So I'm gonna have to take a look at that and see whether or not Sign has overlap with Dropbox. Depends how tightly they've integrated the user interface and if it's all in one place.
Okay. Well, look at it. You were talking 5 years ago.
Yeah. My guess is it does. If I own Dropbox and I bought Hello Sign, I'm going to integrate it into the UI so that with a single login, the user who has access to Dropbox also has access to the Hello Sign functionality. Otherwise, you'd have to require them to re-authenticate, which, as we all know, customers just love authenticating multiple times to things.
Right.
So my pure guess, but my guess would be that it's all one login and all one OAuth token.
Got it. Okay.
And if anybody in the call has Dropbox customers and they know, it'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah. Eric, just curious, knowing that you have some, even if they don't have, is your let's just say they don't have Sign, but they have Dropbox, is your recommendation, hey, change it anyway?
Yeah, and we're also trying to get them all on a SharePoint anyways, and this might motivate them.
Got it. And more than likely, again, I guess this is the other punctuation to this. More than likely, they're using similar creds.
Yeah.
Right. If they are using one, versus the other. So
that depends if they've gone with a password manager and have the policy to never use the same password for anything. Right.
I'm certain all our customers are doing that. All right. By the way, do we have wins? I should have started there. Do we have some wins for the week? This is going to be next week with Leron and the product team. I'm going to use this. Got some good stuff to show next week, right, Chip?
Yeah, Leron we've been talking for a long time about changing. I'll give you guys just a little taste, changing the whole whitelisting setup, and making it easier to instantly whitelist people based off events, and just making a whole bunch of changes around whitelisting. So Leron has been working on the UI design of that, and we've been talking about the functional design in the background for quite a while, and he's going to take everybody through what we're thinking. Obviously looking for feedback from this group. We've taken a couple of partners through sort of the early designs, and they were very enthusiastic about it. So we're feeling pretty good about bringing it to this group and opening it up for further feedback before we start laying down code.
Right. All right. Awesome. Hey, Adam, I was just looking real quick at chat. Adam, you put that thing in bleeping. Does it say anything deeper about regular Dropbox? Just Curious. Adam Robinson. Okay. And then Rich Kennedy, I think it's Rich R. Kennedy. Rich, correct? Rich. You said made a statement or question about SSO access. Your thoughts on that, Chip, if there is SSO, I guess, and if they're using both platforms?
Well, SSO doesn't remove the risk of session tokens being taken. So if they got a pile of session tokens somehow, which I don't know why Dropbox would be storing them on their server systems, but okay, maybe, or at least start storing them unencrypted, then there could still be a risk. Presumably, Dropbox responded to this by revoking any session tokens that they were aware of, or at least I would hope they did.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not going to, this isn't a pass-through hack that's going to enable someone to go back to your SSO or OAuth provider and hack those applications. It kind of doesn't work that way. It works the other way. If they happen to get your SSO creds or OAuth creds, then they're going to have access to anything that you SSO into.
Got it. Cool. All right, just quick wins of the week. And that brings, by the way, that I want to go into what you were just talking about, Chip, in a minute. Partner wins. Anybody have anything good they want to share?
Or bad. Last week's news of the week, we'll call it, led to a very, very productive discussion, I think. I hope for Enrique. So
yeah, that's right. And
maybe if Enrique's on the call, maybe he could give us a follow-up on that. But if there are some wins, definitely let's hear about them.
Yeah, let's start with wins. And if not, anybody have a good one or situation like Enrique's, unfortunately, that you want to walk through?
This morning we got a login from Russia. Immediately found it, stopped it, locked it out.
Nice.
So waiting to hear back from the client.
Eric did Respond do that management of that for you, or are you guys not yet really fully utilizing Respond?
Yeah, it was Respond.
It's great. That's a win. To give you guys some stats, we published at the end of 2023 that we had almost well over 7,000 responses, rules triggered for compromised accounts that were shut down and automatically secured. That is running this year on pace to be more than double that already, based upon the numbers that we see. We actually track that number weekly now, and it's nearly 400 a week.
Wow.
So there's a lot of activity. Like I'm surprised there aren't more wins of the week reported where people are having that exact experience that Eric just described. Putin has his eye on you, Eric. He likes your beard, Eric.
Hey, Travis, do you have a mic? I loved what you put in there. Do you have a microphone?
Yeah.
By chance? Can you unpack that for a bit with us? You had a prospect that you were meeting with.
Yeah, so we had a meeting with them. We kind of went over our whole stack and everything and increased security. Obviously, MFA and all that kind of stuff were basically ignored at this point. And so, we came back with a pretty standard rate for it. Kind of a larger company. It was I think 20 people in the office and then a few dozen service guys and stuff. But they came back and said that they had other offers that were better, so they went with them. And literally, we talked to them maybe 2 months ago, and we got an email from one of their accounts earlier this week, and they said that they needed us to pay for an invoice, which was obviously fake. And so we responded to it saying, hey, it looks like this email might be compromised or something. And the email responded back saying, no, it's legitimate. Go ahead and pay this invoice. So the person who got entrance was not kicked out. It had been known for a couple of days that they had been compromised, but they didn't lock the account down. And so, we were the ones that had to tell them that, yeah, they're still not out of it.
So this was the prospect that said no, and consequently you got an email, you knew there was a threat actor in there.
Yeah, like we don't have like any active like sales or anything like that would require an invoice from them. So
Right.
we got an invoice for something, you know, asking us to pay, which
Mhm.
we obviously did not have anything that we needed to pay for. And then they said that it was definitely legitimate, which obviously it wasn't. So yeah, their new IT company is already dropping the ball, it sounds like.
What kind of, just
Great.
curious, but
Travis, you think they're coming back to you?
We'll see. Well, you know, we haven't really reached out beyond that yet. So
Oh, I would definitely go back to the prospect and say, you know, just so you know,
yeah.
here's what we would have done.
Yep. Yeah, first off, yeah, we would have cut any active 365 sign-ins or anything like that. Seriously, just really easy stuff. But yeah, it's disappointing.
Tell them that you've had your internal actuarials do a study, and based upon their previous history with you not following recommendations and now their known exposure, you're going to raise their rate.
Yeah, that would work.
Travis, just curious, what kind of industry was it?
Uh, they're a water softener company, like they deliver water all over the area here.
Interesting. So,
Yeah.
so fair to say that they're probably they view themselves as a commodity-based business.
Yeah.
Right? Because let's make it easy. They deliver the beads, they deliver the salt,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
So, not that I'm going to go deep into a role play with you, but it's a really interesting, again, easy for me to play Monday morning quarterback. But why
Yeah.
I think it's so important to think about who we're talking to in the sales process. And so, obviously, we get to a certain point, there should be obviously other things that are done in the sales process, but pretend
Mhm.
we did everything perfect. And they're like, yeah, we've got some other quotes that are better.
Mhm.
And it's great to set up kind of an oxymoron type of kind of conversation at that point.
Yeah.
Meaning, hey, so Travis, it's interesting you bring up price. Let me ask you a question. Your business, is it price sensitive?
Right.
Right. And you start to pick on that piece,
Yeah.
right? Of, hey, so I guess there's really no differentiation then when it comes to your business versus another company, right? Everybody delivering salt and putting in beads into, their water softeners is the same. Is that,
Yeah.
am I following you correctly? There's really no reason to go with anybody that, unless they're providing the lowest price. Is that how you see, how you guys do your business and win your business?
Right. Yeah, it's not a bad idea to
That's a great idea.
kind of call them out on it. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously you want to, have tact and rapport,
Yeah, of course.
right? Of course, I'm not going to be you were a dick, da 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 da.
Right.
But there's really interesting ways to go about that, and it can really not every time, but often it can really flip the script in how they're thinking about things, right? Oh yeah, well, no, and the way in which we, differentiate is this, and this, and we're not always the low cost provider. Oh, well, tell me more
Right.
about, tell me
Yeah.
more about why someone might use you, right? And spend blah, 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 blah more for your
Mhm.
salt.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been pretty selective about the clients that we've onboarded. We're really looking for people that are open-minded to the idea of changing the way things are, which is something that we get a lot of pushback from. I mean, even implementing MFA for some of our clients has been one hell of a chore. Like it's kind of ridiculous thinking of like just that simple of a change can cause people to, lose it essentially.
No question. And and I'm going to introduce this in upcoming scenarios. Remember, we did a lot with Challenger Sale. If you were you around with any of those conversations?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I'm going to introduce a new kind of concept. It's called natural selling, or NEPQ. But basically sales psychology is changing yet again, right? It's evolving. And I think a lot of times as MSPs and MSSPs, like we're trying to impart our thoughts on them, right? If you think
Right.
about it, we're saying, hey, right, well, why aren't you doing MFA? Are you crazy? Right? I know we don't say it that way, but in essence, aren't we? Right? Why aren't
I
you
mean,
doing this? Or why aren't you
at some
doing
point you gotta like force them into it, like it's not an option really.
well, but and I hear you 1,000%.
Yeah.
But just last thing I'll say, Chip, and I promise we'll get back on track unless you guys find this helpful. But what's interesting is people do things for their reasons.
Yeah.
Right. So if we can help them discover why it would benefit, why they would see this as something that is better for them than us telling them.
Right.
And I'll leave that for a whole nother sales training topic. But that's where we can really change. Like, in other words, if I went to Chip and let's just say I had a meeting on secure coding principles, and I sat
Yeah.
down with him and I'm like, hey, asking him questions. And he's like, well, we do our coding this way and this way. And I'm like, Chip, you really should do, you're missing, from an OAuth perspective, you're really missing these things when it comes to, your SQL and, your prevention of SQL injections and this, and this. And I really think you should do this. Right. Chip, you might be like, well, go F yourself. Right. Meaning like, but if I did it in a different approach, well, hey, so you guys have seen this before, you know what I mean? Chip. So it's nuanced, right? How I approach you.
Well, look, human psychology is the first reaction of most people until they achieve a lot of maturity about their business is to take any criticism, no matter how much honey is delivered with it, and get their back up a little bit. That's just what they do, because they know instinctively that if they accept the criticism, that means that they have to think about how they're going to change practices, policies, change something, and change automatically comes with the instinct that change is going to cost you either time or money or both.
And that you're wrong.
And that you've been wrong. Correct. So it is difficult. I mean, but I also think that successful people learn that they actually like to be called out when they're wrong. Like they'd much rather be told when they're wrong. Flip this around. When I've gone through this with lots of times, actually teaching my kids about life as they've grown into their 30s, when they're pissed off at somebody because they've had a bad customer experience, and it's somebody they've done a lot of business with. And I say, well, why don't you tell them? I can't tell them. This is just going to piss them off. I'm like, no, if you tell them the right way, if you say, look, I've been a customer a long time, and I've appreciated working with you. And if it were me, I would want you to tell me what I'm about to tell you. And maybe that's the way you approach this, with customers is, look, if I were in your shoes and you knew what I know, I would want you to tell me. This is not that you're wrong or that you're inadequate. It's that it's something that I've gained knowledge about that I want to share with you, and I can back it up with statistics and numbers, and true use cases of why you should be thinking about changing the behavior. I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny that you brought up MFA like 5 years later in the SaaS alerts journey, and we still have people talking about people being our MSP partners talking about struggling to get customers to adopt MFA. Like it's stunning, and it's not just, it really doesn't have anything to do with SaaS alerts. Like this has been a journey going all the way back to when I was still an MSP that we've been struggling with this, but the reluctance is just staggering.
Yeah.
Yes, Chad, I try to, but yeah, it's really interesting. There's definitely, again, we'll do a whole session devoted to this, and I'll see if I can bring on somebody too that really understands this facet of psychology and selling, because it is continuing to evolve and it is fascinating. I think there are times to challenge people, Chip. There are times to use, I'll close with this. There are times to use tactics where like, ooh, Chip, if I got a question, if I had, how can I talk to you about something that if I don't tell you, I'm concerned things will go bad, but I don't want to offend you. What would you do if you were me?
Great intro.
you know, and so there's all these different nuances to how we do it, but okay. So Enrique, are you with us, bud?
I don't think Enrique is with us.
Okay. Okay. All right. So any other partner wins that folks might have that they want to share?
Well, Steven's got a mini loss. What is that, Steven?
Hi there. I was just helping figure out a kind of what happened, but I've done it before, and one of our engineers was connecting an org in the account management section, which is something that we might do during onboarding, but that is, effectively the same as connecting respond. And so what they didn't know is that was turning up, our rules that are kind of targeting all orgs, and so. That was something that wasn't really clear. It ended up remediating a user that was traveling, but something we weren't quite ready to go live with those actions yet, and so that's something that I just have to kind of help communicate there.
So, Steven, let me ask you, because I have to confess, I don't remember exactly what the UI says, but I know it refers to respond connection being required to turn on the organizational management piece, because
Okay.
it's changing the tenant. Is it possible that there's two possibilities? Number one, your tech just kind of glanced through that
I'll say when I
and the second is
pull it,
that we're not doing a
Sorry.
good enough job, and we want feedback. If we need to be doing a better job of flagging that out when they connect at the organization, then we'd love to get that feedback directly if you believe that.
Yeah, when I look at account management, I don't see respond mentioned there, and so to me, it's not less clear than it we can make it. Yeah.
Okay, we'll make a note of that. I know I'm sure there are a couple of people on this call on our side that are making a note of that already.
All right. So were you guys on last week when we did the phishing? Anybody with us? Quick show of hands. Yes. Just checking chat. Okay. So I wanted to show this one, Chip, that I got this week. Clearly a phishing kit, where we spoke about this, something done in mass.
Hey, Andrew, we're still seeing your
here.
Dropbox screen.
Yeah,
Oh, I thought I was sharing everything. Sorry.
nope.
Bear with me, guys. Okay. So can you see me now?
Yeah, we got it.
All right. So I thought this one was interesting. Can you guys see this okay?
Yeah.
So clearly you can tell, by quick look at the logo. But the point is these are done for mass exploit, right? They're the fact that Amit kind of talked to us like, you can buy it for whatever, a few $100 a week or month or whatever it is even. And so it's allowing just this ecosystem of threat actors to gain these tools and just get a hold of large amounts of compromised emails and send them on out. So I just thought it was interesting per our conversation last week.
I would love to know how many Spotify users fell for that.
It's even though it's not a bad one, right, Chip? Because again, it's, if you're really into your music, which a lot of Spotify people are, right? Couldn't you see some subset falling for it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
I think there's a lot of people that would fall for something like this. People who aren't in IT and are just like going about their day to day and, oh shit, oops, sorry, this is recorded. Like, oh shoot, like I listen to this every day. I need to click on this immediately. Like my mom would probably click on this.
Oh, my wife would click on it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And Gary, that's really cool that you say that, and it is my hope is that you guys will use some of these for marketing and education. That
I just take away the credit card. It's much easier that way.
That's true. but I am a Spotify user. So clearly either one of two things, either Spotify's database got hacked, right? And they know that they have a big subset of accounts. Or it was just a generic, hey, we're gonna hope and pray, right? And send it out in mass.
Well, Spotify has 500 million users worldwide. Like it's a big footprint.
Right. So even if you hit 20%,
Yeah, even if you're just
Yep.
shotgunning, you're bound to get a bunch of people that are Spotify users.
Right. Good point. So I just wanted to share that post our phishing kit conversation last year. That here we go. Or sorry, last week.
Model.
What's that?
Sounds like a business model.
It's a phenomenal business.
Oh, it is a business model. Absolutely.
Oh,
It's a business model that's raking in money.
Yeah. I mean, well,
They wouldn't do it if people didn't click the links.
well,
Correct.
and
Exactly.
Eric, I mean, I probably some sarcasm there, but you know, the ecosystem, right? There's an entire supply chain ecosystem very well defined, right? In with threat actors.
Here, I just sent you guys a YouTube thing that one of my security guys sent me a couple of weeks back. Put it in
Okay.
the chat room. It's an interesting scammers. They basically freak out when somebody finds out their real names. They find that the IP address of the camera in India. They got into the cameras through using default passwords, and while it is a company, while employees and they're trying to, as a calling center, they're all trying to scam this person. He's going on the back end and he's seeing what they look like, and he's like, well, it's a nice shirt you have on, I know exactly what you're wearing. They start to freak out. But at the end of the day, I don't even blame them. They make $300 a month. So, you're working for a company that exists just to scam people. They're making $1,000 a month. So you got to feed your family. I'm more against the company that exists. And as a husband, in this case, it was a husband and wife team in India. They're still around. They still do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eric, I've seen those videos and
I have to.
I actually got sucked down a rabbit hole and watched like 5 hours of those videos one night because somebody else sent them to me. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best ever.
Oh my God. Yeah, and there's a podcast that someone just turned me on to. It's called Dark Net Diaries, and that's another one. Just go down a rabbit hole. It was a friend that works at Homeland Security said, "Oh, go down this one. This is great."
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to flip. I'll start here, but I also want to show the Verizon DBIR real quick. So I just thought this was interesting, right? I opened up by talking about this. I don't know if you all saw this or saw my LinkedIn post. It's got a lot of reads, but the funny thing about the LinkedIn post, if you saw my post, this was the headline, right? That the Change Healthcare CEO admits, it was a Citrix account. It had stolen credentials and no MFA. Interestingly, if you recall, back when the Screen Connect vulnerability came out, do you remember what happened? If you don't, Change Healthcare initially blamed Screen Connect. They've since retracted because it wasn't obviously Screen Connect, but it was this. And I just thought it was hysterical because I read the testimony to what the White House, and in it the CEO goes into stating how their security team thwarts an attack every 70 seconds, blah blah blah, and it's something like 540,000 a year. And the irony of this is, okay, well, that's fantastic, but the core fundamentals of your security hygiene failed, right? And I'm not throwing stones because this is exactly, Chip, what happened to Microsoft just now, just a few weeks earlier. And this is what happened to the Colonial Pipeline with their VPN. I mean, and I wanted to bring this up again, not for us to take this into the marketplace for FUD factors, but more using it as means to tell stories with your customers and prospects. That look, Gary, you've been in this a long time, bud. It's like, oh, we don't want to pay for this, and we don't want to pay for this enhanced security. And the irony is, if we did a decent job on inventory and the core fundamental things around, good password hygiene and MFA and patching, secure configuration, just those few things, if you look at the attacks and really have SaaS alerts, Chip, there's not your percentages of getting compromised go down like to a very, very small percent. Like, I'm not saying don't have all those other defense in depth things, but it's pretty damn ironic when you look at what's happening. And then, by the way, I'll bring up the Verizon DBIR. And we will just real quick here. You know, the big difference this year, by the way, is no shock still on you know, human element, right? We could predict that being the leading factor of compromise, and their data set went over 10,000 incidents this year, is first time ever, which is pretty amazing. And then breaches with the ransomware and extortion. What was really interesting is this piece and the vulnerability piece, but that the amount of third-party software and you know, that we're seeing these supply chain attacks just become more and more prolific. Why they're, you know, why are they focusing on Dropbox and LastPass and Okta and Screen Connect and on and on and on and on, is because the threat actors know that if they can get into a third party, their bang for buck is right. It's like, why did they go after RMMs so, you know, heavily when they finally figured that piece out? So the supply chain is certainly the one of the big ones that Verizon talks about this year. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. Any thoughts on that, Chip? And we'll get more into the Verizon DBIR next week or the week after.
Not a lot of thoughts to add that we haven't already discussed before. I mean, it's just kind of the same old, same old. You know, tangential to this, did you read about Kaiser Permanente's announcement that they had a data breach? So I'll post a link to it, but you know, their data breach was even more insidious in that they haven't announced fully how this happened, but basically they had tools embedded in their website where their customers would go to search for terms about their health maladies, right? You know, somebody jumps in there and says, you know, oh my gosh, you know, I think I have AIDS. How should I be treated or whatever? And Kaiser Permanente's website was sending all that information to Microsoft, to Bing, to Google, to Twitter, you know, exporting it directly from the website with the customer credentials or the customer username. So, you know, so that brings up, like, that's the whole application security thing, which is, you know, as a SaaS vendor, which has been driving me, you know, to continue to make us tighter and tighter. But there are so many angles through which your data can get shared, stolen, leaked, that you got to constantly be vigilant about it. Like, this goes beyond just this conversation, even goes beyond just what we're talking about as MSP owners and security professionals. It's everywhere. And I think that talk track, back to discussion with Travis, with customers, is making them aware that we are all swimming in a sea of piranhas. Like, we're goldfish and is swimming in a sea of piranhas, and it doesn't stop. Like, it is everywhere. So you've got to take every step that you can, obviously including, you know, the orchestration, security posture management up on the front side, and knowing that you are likely to be compromised at some point. So what's the last line of defense going to be? You know, and obviously I'm sort of tooting our own horn here, because SaaS alerts is that last line of defense when the compromise happens. But I used to say that if you had accounts without MFA, it's a matter of if, not when, you're going to get compromised. Somebody in your company. I no longer say that. It's a matter of if, not when, almost no matter what you're doing. Like, sooner or later, you're going to be your company, not everybody in your company, but someone in your organization is going to be the victim of a compromise. It's going to happen.
Which and Stephen noted that you have a hand up, which, you know, Chip, I would say the last line of defense really
nice chat.
It really is certainly what you guys have produced, but also really it's really around your response, right? Your incident response, your team. how well you can be resilient, your cyber resiliency, which is again a topic for a whole different day. But Stephen, you had something?
No, I was just gonna chime in about the RMM tools and what they're using, and you mentioned the Screen Connect, and yeah, we had a user that saw they ended up running a support session from some malicious Screen Connect instance, and they only really noticed it because the cursor moved, but and it was able to shut down, and we could figure it out, and nothing ran that would trigger anything really as far as SIM necessarily, or even Sentinel-1. But when you think about the attack timeline, they're able to do a lot of reconnaissance and persistence there, and screen scraping, clipboard stuff. So it's a scenario that I hadn't really seen happen much, but a lot of the tools would allow that to go unnoticed, or could go unnoticed.
We did a whole session at Right of Boon this year, Stephen, on what they call living off the land and living off the land binaries. And so you're seeing the proliferation, right, of things that, often don't get tagged as malicious because they're legitimate tools, whether they're in Microsoft ecosystem or just, generically valid tools. Again, how the threat actors are evolving is how they stay under the radar of EDR is to use, some type of tool set that wouldn't normally flag as something malicious. Chip, to your point on web app with the Kaiser Permanente, this is the Verizon literally says, hey, we understand like phishing is the where the concentration is. However, the exploitation in this is where we want to spend time. So they really dig into web application, right? Which is, again, we talked about last year, M365. They obviously point out the proliferation of VPN attacks. Just again, I can't tell people enough. No offense, but I think you have to have your head examined if you're using a VPN when we have, solutions now that are, ZTNA type. Yes, they're probably a little more expensive, but find something with single packet authorization and get off of this stuff that's being constantly targeted by threat actors. Okay, so back to this, which would be attack surface management. So I wanted to kind of get into this. Anybody, familiar with the terminology of attack surface management? Anybody doing assessments with this mindset of attack surface management? I'm just going to take a quick peek at chat to see. Yeah, I agree, Chad. Thank you. Okay, so John Strand at BHIS is big on this. Looking at when he does continuous what they call attack surface assessment for his clients. He obviously is in a different, his customers are the biggest of big, but I wanted to bring this to light based on what I just showed you. If you think about those attacks, whether it happened to be United Healthcare Group, Microsoft, or Colonial Pipeline, is those with good attack surface management, if there was a really strong process and in that, they should have been picked up, right? Because there would have been obviously strong inventory and there would have been strong process of change control if for some reason MFA was taken off that citrus box, or the VPNs, or Microsoft's legacy system. So does that make sense to you first and foremost, that we have to look at and what I want to kind of set the the thought process here is, I'd love for you guys to take this as a homework assignment for yourself. In other words, do an attack, and I'll walk through what attack surface assessments look like, and do it for yourself. But Chip, was any of this part of your ISO and part of your ongoing how you guys look at security?
Yeah, absolutely. It was part of our ISO, part of our SOC 2. And for us, we have really two forks that we have to look at this at. One is our what I call our, our business operations, which is where we behave like everyone else, right? We have, an office system that we use that has all of our productivity suite, and everybody's logging into that, and we have all of our data there, sharing files, all of that stuff. So we have to evaluate on that side. But even more importantly, we're constantly looking at this for the product itself, for the SaaS Alerts product itself. Everything, we look at it from, I suppose we look at it from the top side down, from the client that you all log into, and assessing the potential attack surface of that client all the way down through every single cloud function that we have, every library that we use inside of our code, and then all the way down to our APIs, both the private APIs that you guys don't see, and even more importantly, the APIs that our partners connect to. Like those are all attack surfaces that we have to constantly monitor and constantly be updating. And, in our case, we use, I'm just counting them up, a half dozen different specific tools to look at different elements of where the attack surface exists and give us real-time reporting on when we have vulnerabilities. And we do, like we'll see a library, some library that we have embedded in the code, and it will come out and, there's a zero-day exploit that somebody has discovered, and we've got to go back and change out that library, update it, or completely rewrite a cloud function on the back end to use something different because it can't be remediated. Like that's how Liron makes his that's Liron's oatmeal every morning. So
yeah. Well, and so like I said, I'd love for you guys, I know you're busy, right? I never want to think that that I don't think I understand your business. As Gary Harlan will tell you, I've been in here 24 years now, right? So I understand your business. I understand the busyness. It would be a really interesting, maybe special project, Gary, if you apply it as a true methods thing, a special project to go, okay, this quarter, we want to do an attack surface management, looking at our company, right? What are all the different systems that, as Chip said, that support us? And what are all the systems that support our customers? And then look at all, get those all mapped out. And then we have inventory, right? Strong inventory first of all those things. And then, as we're going to look at, what's in scope, right? For assessing this. And then I'm going to show you some tools out there, open source and available tools, and then a process. And yes, I'll send these out and you can screenshot whatever you want. All right. So one of the most important things that you'll hear from folks like John Strand and others that are going to do this, if they're hired to do attack surface management, is the easy, I'm air quoting, the easier part is what's known. Right? In other words, what's known to you as Chip said, we use these 6 systems. Well, how does an attacker look at you? And so I'm going to show you these 5 or so different OSINT's open source intelligence, as an acronym. So they're certainly going to use Shodan to look simply for what's facing the internet. This is probably the most common way in which VPNs are compromised, right? Any internet's facing device that's unpatched, this is where a threat actor is living. They're going to use tools like Census as well, or their version, right? Because threat actors often don't pay for, software. but this is going to show things. Chip, do you guys use this at all to look at cloud risk? And it does a really good job of looking at cloud infrastructure, at subdomains, at things that could be out there used by the company that are often shadow IT type things. So this is something that I encourage you to look at, again, for yourself first. Virus Total is a huge, great one to look at in terms of what what's out there right now, what's spreading ransomware, etc. Google Docs. So this is a really interesting one that the attack surface management team at Black Hills uses all the time. There is this site that I'm going to put in here. It's really fascinating. I'll pull it up for you guys to show you. But it actually is this database. Have you ever seen this, Chip? That is constantly being iterative and added to, where you can put in these they call dorks, and you put it in with a domain or some type of syntax about the company you want to go after, and it'll throw back data that you cannot believe. It's fascinating.
Yeah, we don't use Google Docs, but we use similar functionality in our ASVS control system that is constantly scanning, again, our product from the outside in, as if they were an attacker, to look for these exploits and then report them to us.
Yeah, very cool. And so, kind of in summing up today, and again, like I said, I'll get this to you all, is, so where do you start? Well, first, like I said, is, so you have that visual chat that you were saying, can I have that? Of course you can have this whole thing. So define it. Like what now, when we look at our attack surface as our MSP, right? What's in scope, right? What are things that we want to make sure we assess that could be potentially at risk from, if I was a threat actor attacking me, what would I go after? It'll probably, if you think about it from that perspective, it'll probably give you a pretty good indication, right, of what you want to put in that scope. And then, go into gathering the data. Again, this is, like I said, Gary, I'm speaking to you because you understand special projects through the True Methods methodology, right?
We've done a few of them.
Right. So it'd be something that you'd say, okay, we're going to set aside this is our special project for this quarter, right? We're going to sign so-and-so and so-and-so. This is when you'll spend time doing this. We'll have a huddle and see our status of it, but here's how we go ahead. Here's how we want to go ahead and start gathering the data. We obviously have a lot of systems internally, whether it's RMM, network monitoring, on and on and on and on. You can use, there's bunches of open source or paid, but start doing port scanning with like Nmap or something of that nature. Subdomain enumeration, or is there anything, this is an interesting one. Chip, did you guys find anything interesting when you were going through your ISO or SOC in subdomains that you found interesting, or nothing really?
I mean, nothing that was flagged. I mean, we do use a couple different subdomains, but we, everything that we do, we protect with a web application firewall. So, yeah. We don't hang anything out there for people to just go chew on.
Yeah. Ben, just curious, Ben, and throw your MSP hat back on, but like, I can't believe WAFs were something that, you saw a lot of your customers. Yes, I put the Google Doc. Here it is. I'll put the link right here. Right, Ben? Like, you don't see a lot of WAFs out there that customers are using.
No, I think we were hired to do that sort of thing, like subdomain exploration for a company that was large and wanted to make sure that there was no old records hanging out there that they weren't aware of.
Did you guys find anything?
Oh yeah. Well, it was a company so big that they didn't have a handle on that.
Interesting.
All
right. And wrapping things up, things that, again, whatever, vol scanning, internal vol scanning, again, is it important? Yes. External vol scanning is, put it this way, like when you read the Verizon data breach or look at a report, are common vulnerabilities how threat actors are getting in? Yes, they are. And it is increasing substantially, by the way, Chip. It went up 180% exploited vols. But the crazy thing is, so many of them were known vols and end days, which is again, that's where we get into process and hygiene. These are often not 0 days.
Are you ready?
Yep, scary stuff. Andrew, I'll make one final comment on doing an attack surface analysis.
Yeah.
You just focused on all the technology stack, which is obviously critical. Don't forget the people. And this is particularly important in the MSP world. You know, I always presume that everyone on this call is either an MSP owner or a senior manager in an MSP. And one of the biggest vulnerability is frontline techs. And the process that are in place to observe what they're doing and hold them accountable day to day are really important to the overall security side of things. If I were an attacker and I wanted to go after, you know, a particular small medical practice, because medical practices are great for ransomware, first thing I would do is try and figure out who their MSP is and see if I can exploit a tech. Cheap way to do it.
Yeah. You know, and it's interesting you bring that up, Chip. A few things I would say about that. Number one, we're seeing obviously an increase in, you know, those smishing and help desk type, you know, again, a la MGM type attacks. So I agree with you on the frontline help desk, right? Really looking at them and from a social engineering perspective. Gosh, just
You guys have a good week. I'll see you in 2. I gotta run.
All
See
right,
you,
Gary.
Gary.
See you, bud. Oh, geez.
Gary derailed your train of thought.
No, I was getting derailed before then, but I'll kind of wrap it up there. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Chip. The human side is a huge piece of it, you know. And again, obviously, you know, the Verizon data breach sums that up. Period.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, good. I really appreciate the banter, Chip, as always. Amy, anything we want to leave everybody with and get ready for next week?
No, I think this is a great call. I love being able to talk about the wins and even some of, I hate to call them losses, I'm going to call them learning experiences that everyone can bring to the group. I think it's been really great conversation the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, agree. All right. Well, everybody have a fantastic week, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next Thursday, same bat channel, same time.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Miss Amy.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.